Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. Ella Parlor is here. I'm Robert Plank from DFY Podcast, and Ella Parlor is from EllaYourBella.com. Ella Parlor is from EP Consulting, and she is a seasoned sales and marketing consultant with a 15-plus year track record of driving billion-dollar revenue growth for global brands and startups. We're talking about the NFL, the NBA, celebrities, influencers, and she's the author behind an acclaimed business memoir called High Tolerance, The Intoxicating World of Alcohol Marketing, and she is the host of the excellent Eavesdrop with Ella podcast. So we're going to be talking today about marketing, about uniqueness, about ATL, BTL, BLT, who knows what. So Ella, glad to be speaking with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Robert, and I really appreciate that marvelous introduction. That was lovely. Thank you.
Yes, we have to put our best foot forward. It's like when you jazz up the resume and just, put on a good presentation. And so with that in mind, what do we have to brag about? What's the victory lap? What's your uniqueness? Why should people pay extra close attention to you?
I feel really blessed. I recently had the epiphany that my career story is so unique that it became a best-selling book. And I think that says a lot because I really wrote the book to answer the question that I've been getting for 15 years, which is, what do you do and how did you get that job? Marketing is full of buzzwords and it is a little elusive, I think, especially for sales leaders within the sales space. And yet we know that marketing is needed, but it's so beyond social media and our website. And so I'm excited to help unlock some of the solutions for companies, brands, clients, and then hopefully your audience today.
Fantastic. And I can definitely relate to wanting to get that hot tip or wanting to get a little better on the right track and either being too close to it or too far away, right? You look at someone's social media, they have it really dialed in, and I'm just like, I'm not sure what I'm looking at. I'm not sure how I can replicate their success. And then you say, I'll do all these learning, and then you're too far away. You get lost in the buzzwords and you say, well, that doesn't really help me either. But I like just right off the bat how you like everyone's like saying like, okay, well, what should I write a book about? What should be my topic? And you're just like, well, people kept asking me this question of how I got this or that job. So now that's kind of your business card on steroids. And so what sort of impressive jobs have you had? Like, what are these jobs that people are saying, how did you get it?
So my niche is within the intersection of alcohol beverage companies, which is why the book is called High Tolerance. It's a little bit of a pun on having a high tolerance for pain and a high tolerance for the work that is required to build a career, but then also a high tolerance for alcohol itself. And so I have worked in the beverage space for several years. My career started with Red Bull. And I think when I started that job, the impression for a lot of people, I was one of those Red Bull girls. That's not the official job title, but I was one of those Red Bull girls that wore the backpack. And I think one of the impressions with that job was, oh, this is just a girl passing out a Red Bull. And I had the opportunity to work with some of the best global marketing leaders at the time, especially within the beverage space, because we know that you cannot today take a marketing class without Red Bull being analyzed in some type of case study. And I got to work with these individuals before the energy drink category was developed. So from there, I have worked my way through working with the 3 top largest alcohol suppliers in the world. You probably wouldn't know them by name unless you're familiar with the beverage space, but really big brands that you've heard of like Jameson Whiskey and Crown Royal and Johnny Walker and Kettle One and Smirnoff and Jose Cuervo, and the list goes on and on and on, that I've been able to work with these big brands and find ways beyond the marketing brand appeal, the brand marketing appeal, and really working on tactical strategies to commercialize the brands both above the line and below the line. And I think when we talk about marketing, sometimes we get a little too highfalutin and we focus on those above the line strategies. But where my crux and growth has been is working below the line, more on a consumer facing level and really supporting sales teams. Because I think as marketers, we forget it is our job to sell. It is not our job to feel good about creating something that's pretty or packaged well. The point of creating pretty, I use the word pretty to be a little condescending. The point of creating appealing graphics, designs, and labels really comes back down to what are we doing to support our sales teams so they can sell the products at an accelerated rate. And I think sometimes as marketers, we lose sight of that and we get a little too caught up in our boardrooms and our presentations and our color palettes and so forth. And I'm always thinking of the people on the other side who are driving those sales. So it's been a great career. And about 9 years ago, I was approached by a former executive that I worked with. And long story short, that was how my business started and ideated. Was I wanted to be able to consult for brands who were hoping to expand their market reach.
Wonderful. And I can definitely relate to wanting to avoid the prettiness, as you say, right? The ivory tower, the vanity metrics, I'm making a big stink. I'm getting all of the social media engagement. I'm Red Bull and I'm making all the viral videos, but it has to then lead to something. And so what do these sales teams need? You say that you go in and make it work. Like, what kind of transformation have you provided?
So I think the interesting part of my career and where I'm really proud of it compared to most marketers was that I truly started pounding pavement, right? So as I mentioned, right, one of those quote Red Bull girls walking into stores at a consumer level. And I began noticing distribution gaps within our route to market. And that means a few things. That means either we were supposed to be at a particular store. I like to pick on Walmart. So we'll say Walmart. We were supposed to be on the shelves at Walmart. We have distribution there, technically. But when you walk into the individual store, nobody had filled the shelf with the product. One of the confusing parts about routes to market is this idea that, oh, well, Walmart said they're going to bring in our product, so they're going to stock the shelves, right? No, Walmart never made that promise. Walmart says, this is a shelf space. You better have someone come and fill the shelf. We don't have time to fill our shelves with your product. And if you don't do it, your competitor is going to take up your shelf space. So that's an example of a distribution gap. Another distribution gap would be forgetting a retailer like Target altogether, thinking, well, Target's not really our retailer or our consumer doesn't really shop there. And so where I found incrementality for specifically Red Bull was within the Hispanic market. I noticed that we absolutely had no Latinx focused marketing. And so creating little sales tools for that retail level to then empower our sales team to start seeing the retail landscape a little bit differently, to target an entire new consumer demographic. So sometimes we get so focused on selling more to our current customer base when there might be time for growing our customer base. And I think that where I've been able to do that a lot is through multicultural marketing. So creating new routes to distribution, and then that's where it's a route to market and RTM. So taking those sales tactics and then creating it at a little bit of a national scale of, well, this is why we're going to partner with this retailer or this influencer or this sports team. And here's how we're going to activate these partnerships to make sure that they're actually yielding the sales that we want to see.
And I like your kind of strategy here of pounding the pavement, right? And this attention to detail of just like at first not really knowing what you were observing and just doing some activity and just kind of going through the repetitions, right? Going into the stores, see the shelf space, see where you're falling short. It's kind of like if you want to work on your marketing, work on your self-improvement, you watch some YouTube videos, you listen to some podcasts, and at first it's all noise, but then after a while you make these connections. And I think it's so valuable, right? I mean, just think of looking at your website and saying, oh, well, the copyright year is 2 years out of date, right? Imagine like signing up in your own opt-in form and you didn't realize it was broken, or like you entered an address that was already in there and that's broken, or you log into your membership site. I mean, there's always these shortcomings that maybe we don't even know we have if we just kind of look at just the nitty gritty, look at our own business, our own website, look at what's doing the selling, and we can easily see these things where we can do these improvements. And so say you have one of these insights, right? You say that well, we need to sell more to the Latinx market. And you mentioned about creating sales tools. And so, like, what does that mean? Like, when you say, I want to make a sales tool and make this work, like, what is a sales tool? What's that involved? What's the thought process?
Yeah, I would say I love that you just touched upon the consumer journey, because I think that gets lost a lot of times, especially when you're working at the executive level. We just lose touch with our consumers because we're so busy creating and building that we forget that once upon a time we were consumers, and that's where we should have passion for whatever it is that we're selling, right? At one time, we were a consumer of that sector, that category, that brand, so forth. Even if we've created the brand ourselves because it was something that we were consuming and wanted to create a better product in the landscape. And so when you talk about websites as you did, right, that is a perfect example. Finding broken links, you're not going to get there by thinking of, oh, all my ducks are in a row. You'll have to at times revisit the consumer journey and keep a thumb on the pulse, or hire a team to do so. Because again, your website could be beautiful and beautifully done, but if it's not tactical and practical, then you're going to have a distribution gap. And so when we talk about multicultural marketing specifically, when working with brands, especially smaller brands that are just so excited about becoming a national or international brand, some of the conversations that I have with them they're just so focused on above the line marketing. I will tell you the one thing that marketers want to see, a sales tool that they just want. And this is where I say it's more of an emotional decision rather than a logical one or database, is for whatever reason, brands really want billboards. For some reason, there's something about seeing your brand product on the billboard of a major highway or a freeway that makes you feel like, check, I've made it. Like, check mark, I've made it. And I get this question all the time. And I've executed several billboards. I know how much they cost. I've executed billboards across highways all over America. So I understand that landscape. But a billboard should really be the 9th touch point for your brand. Meaning that you shouldn't be using a billboard, which is a sales tool because it's bringing attention to your brand. That should not be the way that you're trying to build awareness of your brand. That's what you're doing to remind people, to get them re-engaged, to grow the loyalty of your brand. And that's why I say a 9th touch point. So when we talk about touch points, that's also going to be a sales tool. So what we want to do with the first time is be within that consumer journey. Where is the consumer? They are below the line. And what that means is, where is the consumer purchasing the product? What is within, if they are at the point of purchase, whether this is an online shelf, online through your website, or whether it's physically in a retail store, what is within their reach, within the 5-10 feet? Those are the sales tools you want. So that could mean a shelf talker. That could mean a digital banner. That could mean a photo. That could mean a click button that toggles back and forth, which I have on my website. And I think it's so tacky, but guess which? I did that as a test to see which link gets the most clicks. It's that little one that says buy on Amazon. That's always getting the most clicks. Why? Because it's engaging. And so when we're looking at the consumer journey, it's those touch points at that point of purchase that we need to be focusing on, not worried about the national television commercial and the big billboard on the highway. And so kind of getting, when we have creators and innovators who get really excited because they did their first $1 million in sales, so they have a $50,000 marketing budget. I'm like, okay, well, if we do this $30,000 billboard, how are you going to activate it at the point of purchase for the consumer journey? Maybe we wait until we have more sales tools and touch points before trying to build more marketing above the line.
So you're talking about momentum, basically, right? That there's all these things that go into this consumer journey of getting in front of them and getting their attention. And, you tweaks and fix that buy button. And like, did you just one day change the one little button and suddenly your sales exploded? No, it was like all these multiple actions that you're taking, and it's good and bad, right? It's good because if your competitors then try to copy you, they'll just be copying one little thing, but it's bad for you because if you have that envy and you say like, I just want to focus on this one area, it's like, well, there's all these other things at play, all these other things that you need to do in order to get someone, with the repetition and get them seeing you and noticing you and all these other things. And so with all of these huge, amazing brands and companies that you've worked with and helped, has anything really impressed and or surprised you? Has anything just blown you away as part of your journey?
I would say, and this is going to be a little soft, but I'm a soft person, meaning like instead of always focusing on the business and the hard skills, because at the end of the day, while I sell products and the companies I work with are products, I'm always concerned about the people behind the products, the people that are buying our products. And where I have found the most profitability in my work is that I'm not just caring about the products, I'm caring about the people and bringing the passion that I have for a love of people. So that means not only the people that I'm working who are building these brands and products, but also the people who are going to take home whatever our product may be. And I think that no matter how big your company, no matter how much revenue you're making, no matter how much money you're making, what really matters is the people in your life, the people that you're serving. So whatever it is you're creating, it doesn't matter if it's a billion-dollar whiskey brand or a healthcare product or anything in between. I think just keeping in mind the people rather than just thinking of them as consumers, that is what is going to have the long lasting impact and legacy that I believe that all brand owners, including myself, want, or company owners want for their brand, their company, is that legacy of just loving people. And that's where I've seen the most success consistently is when you have a brand or an executive team that is led people first. That's where you're going to see the most ROI.
That is powerful. And that is a similar aha I had a few years ago. And I'm always thinking on a daily basis how to improve my people skills, be more of a people person in general, just be caring and kind and interested in what people are about and what they have to say. And I like how you even broke it down there, right? There's your team and there's your employees, but there's also the consumers. And it informs so much, doesn't it? Because it keeps you motivated, it keeps you fresh, it keeps you creative, it informs what you'll do with your marketing. It's such it's so simple, but it's also kind of lost on some people, and it's helpful to think about the people and what do they care about, what excites them, what do they want, how you can help them. And there's just so many cool ideas to think about. And so tell us about some of these calls to actions that you mentioned before. We mentioned the website, the book High Tolerance, the podcast. What kind of tidbit could we throw out here to get people excited about the High Tolerance book and or the very interesting podcast?
Oh, thank you so much. So Eavesdrop with Ella podcast is really a place to talk about success and what drives success. Again, I'm trying to focus more on the soft skills because as I wrote about in my book, there is an interesting notion as you start to reflect on what the end of the road is. And the fact is, we are all going to die. I just have a hyper awareness of it because I have some painful health history and journey that are in my background. And so while I am driven and motivated by driving revenue and marketing and business and all of those things, I can tell you that when you're in the hospital bed alone, a lot of that noise doesn't matter anymore. And so what I hope is to create a really big change within the business world where we really do start focusing on not only what our legacy is going to be as a brand, because we have I've worked with, 100+ year old brands, and that's all well and good, but truly looking at like your personal legacy. What are people going to say about you at your funeral? And I think that High Tolerance offers a space for driven individuals who maybe aren't thinking about the end of the road, or individuals such as myself who, for whatever reason, got a small taste of what the end of the road looks like. And then it's like, okay, now I can, yes, focus on the driving and the revenue and the business and all of these great things that I so enjoy, the data, but also just remembering to take care of our spiritual selves, emotional selves, financial selves, and physical bodies, because we only get one. And so my podcast really highlights this idea of my Seth philosophy, which talks about having success beyond just financial, but also spiritual, emotional, and physical.
And so is that an acronym, like the
Yep.
SEFPH? Like how does that break
Yep,
down?
it's Ceph. I call it the Ceph philosophy, and it was never supposed to be external facing, but because of my book and because of my health issues, it started because I noticed that not only for myself, but a lot of my peers and my cohorts, as we started making more money and building in whatever our businesses are, our verticals, you start to notice that sometimes our relationships suffer. We're working harder and our marriages suffer, or worse. I know I've worked with executives whose children don't speak to them. And so I created the Ceph philosophy for myself to remind myself every day, okay, spiritually, how do I feel? Emotionally, how are my relationships? Financially, how am I doing? Physically, how am I doing? And everything I do right now, I'm always doing an inventory of those 4 acronyms. I just pick Ceph because I feel like it's easy to remember. So I can just quickly go spiritual, emotional, financial, physical. And that's how I came up with it. But as I've started speaking more openly about it, because unexpectedly having all these health issues where my physical health has significantly taken a decline and a backseat in my life, or really it's at the forefront, but recognizing where I was putting it on the back burner is that I think that no matter what type of success you have, there's always room for growth in one of those dimensions, and just making sure that our success, whatever it might be, physical success, financial success, is never coming at the expense or detriment of another area of success.
I love it. And that's something that we need to be constantly aware of, isn't it? And you always hear these stories, right? You hear like Elon Musk has who knows how many kids and how many of those don't speak to him. Like we don't want that, but we also don't want to play it too safe. And we don't want to only do a little bit in the business and a little bit with the family. You want to go all in and have an awareness of where these 4 pillars are at. I love what you said there of like, which of these can I strengthen? Which of these can I work on and be a little bit better on? And part of that involves listening to people like you and listening to your guests and reading your book. And as far as I know that we said that it's not all about the money in the business and you kind of make the most that you can in your window. But if someone wants to look into hiring you or getting your consulting, they might say, well, I'm not the NFL, but how does someone know if they're an ideal client for you, and what kind of service do you provide there?
So I'm sales and marketing, so anything within the sales and marketing space, and that's going to be operational, right? So I'm not just going to look at your current sales force or your marketing tactics or resources. It's really going to play into, let's make sure the operations are matching the efforts that you're putting forth in sales and marketing. That's what I love to do, is really comprehensively look at those pieces. So if you are looking to hire a sales team or you're looking to develop your sales team, that's absolutely where I am a great resource. If you are looking to budget your marketing, that is also my strength, because just like I mentioned the billboard example, I could look at a business plan because I've worked with these really big companies. For example, I worked with a company that was valuated at about $5 million, and their marketing budget was higher than $1 billion brand I had worked at. And I'm like, no. You should not be spending this much money on this partnership. Do you realize that this $1 billion brand doesn't spend that much money on this type of partnership, right? So just because I'm coming from like the big Fortune 500 companies, I am able to scale it down to make sure that the strategies and tactics that I know are proven and true will work for your business, and we can quickly move the needle. And I would say that if you're seeing a huge disconnect between your sales and marketing team, this is a tale as old as time. They face opposite directions. Bringing a cohesion to where we create all of our salespeople to be marketers and all of our marketers to be salespeople. I think at a lot of times we think they're at opposition, but really they should be best friends and working together for the exact same goal, which is more sales, more revenue. So I would say that if you have an organization and you're looking to develop more on the sales and marketing front, that is absolutely where I can come in. You just go to ellaparlor.com and I'm happy to help you.
Wonderful. An amazing message. EllaParlor.com. The book is called High Tolerance. The podcast is Eavesdrop with Ella. And since you're an author and a podcaster, you know the value of an amazing ending to get people excited to go out and conquer the world, but also wanting more. So along those lines, do you have a final, thoughtful, inspiring quote or lesson to really make us think and get us excited? Anything come to
This
mind?
one has been really strong for me. It's by Winston Churchill, if I can be corny and quote him. But success is not final, and failure is not fatal. It is the courage to keep going that matters most. And I love that because as we grow, yes, our successes are awesome and we love to have that accolade in our back pocket, but that's not where it stops. We have to keep going. And yes, when we fail, it is so painful and we maybe even want to die, but it's not fatal. It's the courage to keep going that always matters the most.
Very interesting and amazing. We'll think about that. Keep going, keep on trucking, and ellaparlor.com is the place to do that and to check out her best-selling book, Business Strategist with Actionable Insights on Leadership, Personal Development, and Work-Life Balance. Ella Parlor, amazing speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Robert. I hope you have an incredible day.
You as well.